people that are really good at it. Two of my favorites. One, a grandmother decided that she would discover that she was a savant at protein folding. For whatever reason, this woman who grew up with no formal science, right, not college educated, barely using a computer, discovered that she was a whiz at protein folding. So that she's discovered all this interesting kinds of stuff, and this is a woman who, when she grew up, because of the restrictions and social norms at the time, didn't have a chance to get a science education. Think of what we lost out on, right? Second kind of person, right? This whole family plays together, and they find out their teenage son is a whiz at this. It's kind of one of those things where they get stuck, and they call him in, and he fixes it and walks away. Now he wants to be a biochemist because he realized he's better at this than just about anybody else. Crazy, crazy story. This project has released multiple peer-authored papers. The coolest thing about their peer-authored papers is they have a hard time finding the journals that will publish them because they insist that everyone who participated in the project get credit as an author. So they released multiple articles, peer-reviewed, all that jazz in premier medical journals with 5-figure numbers of authors, so 10,000 plus authors. Kind of crazy, right? They're making the world a better place. Recently, they tested the folded players against the supercomputers. The folded players won. They gave them 10 problems. The folded players beat them on 7, drew on 2, lost on 1. That's crazy, right? The next example that I'll just throw in here because I finally got mine working is Nike Plus. Nike Plus is an interesting sort of thing. It's something that where you run, it tracks your data. The interesting thing about Nike Plus is what they found, that people at Nike have found, is that if you upload your data to the Nike servers 3 times, you're 90% more likely to keep running than the average person. Tracking it, doing that, making it a little bit more game-like, makes us consume it in a different sort of way, and potentially makes us more healthy. The last example, and I don't want to dwell on this too long, Jane McGonigal wrote a book called Reality is Broken. Her primary argument in the book, which I agree with some of, I disagree with other parts of it, but her primary argument in the book is literally gaming takes us to a better place. It makes us better people. And there's this long-standing story about it, a culture that was running out of food in ancient times. And what they decided they would do is they would ration their food, and they would split it up. One day they'd game, the next day they'd eat. Then they'd game, the next day they'd eat. And they found that they made it through the drought until the promised time again. Along these lines, she and her team developed a game called World Without Oil. And they asked people in this game to imagine a world without oil and how you go about living your life. All of a sudden, they found that regular people came up with better answers to stories and more interesting answers to stories than most of the scientists and climatologists and policy wonks that were dealing with this. Regular people devoting themselves to solving problems just made it better. This works a little bit if you think about World of Warcraft and all the person power that's going into solving problems in World of Warcraft. If we unleash that on the world's problems, all of a sudden we get interesting answers to interesting problems that push us to a better place. She also did a game called Find the Future for the New York Public Library in association with the 100th anniversary of the New York Public Library. They found that people thought it was really popular, and it actually involved kids in interesting kind of ways. So all of a sudden, to reach out to the kids these days, making it a little bit more game-like, made it resound a little bit more. So the third reason why games are totally awesome. And finally, if nothing else, I have a little bit of ethos on this. I did actually write the book on it. So thanks for letting us do this.
Well, as Betty Davis would say, fasten your seatbelts and get ready for a bumpy ride. Chris Paul's going down, and he's going down fast. Before I take Chris down, let me just add a couple thank yous. First, I'd like to thank Ellen and Victoria, the event planners this evening. You guys were awesome. I'd like to, all the students in the communication department that cooked, that prepared, that did the room set up, thank you. It's a classy event, I really appreciate it. I really do. I want to thank Eileen May here, my technical assistant, who's been working with me. We've had a lot of fun putting this together. I'd also like to acknowledge my friends who came this evening to support me, and also a special acknowledgement to Dr. Hilary Cash, a national foremost expert on video game addiction. Hey, this is my corner over here. First of all, this evening is a tribute to Chris Paul. Dear colleague, we come here to honor your book, Wordplay and the Discourse of Video Games. It's really, trust me, a superb work of scholarship. I was incredibly impressed. And I just want you to know that I debate to celebrate you. Now, traditionally, when one argues with a partner of whatever stripe, we usually say it's time to take the gloves off, as in the soft gloves. But, Chris, I want you to remember tonight and how you lost this debate beyond anyone's imagination. And so, I want you to think of me during your retirement, my retirement years, which starts in a year, in my home in Mexico. And I have a special gift for you because we're not taking the gloves off. We're putting the gloves on. I ordered these from the Mexican cartel. Mexico City. Boxing gloves for you. It's daunting to try to debate somebody who is a foremost expert on video games, but I'll try to rise to the occasion. We face a paradox. Pika Iyer, who was here last month at Town Hall, a renowned author, commented that to make sense of our technology, we must remove ourselves. Otherwise, we become tools of our tools. Tonight, we examine the issue of video games in hopes that we don't become the tools of our tools. And now, for a moment of video game patriotism, I'd like to ask you to sit in your favorite game position while I recite the video game Pledge of Allegiance. We pledge devotion to the game, to the end user for whom it drains. One industry, under log, indivisible, with algorithms, codes, and distractions for all. Now, as some of you know, I started the debates, the Salon series, the debates too, here at Seattle U, and it is in the spirit of the salons that the audience is engaged. I would not allow any faculty member to do a salon unless they found a way to engage the audience. And so I seek your participation. On every table and on all the chairs is an index card with a pencil. I'd like to give you just 1 minute. It's not long, but I'd like you to write down only one word. I want you to write down a passion that you want to cultivate in your lifetime. One thing that you're passionate about that you want to cultivate in your lifetime. Would you take a minute? Only one. I'd like you to go beyond the volleyball game this weekend. Now here's what I'd like to ask you to do. I want you to talk and share this passion. It's not a passion you embrace. I'd like you to share this passion with one person you do not know in this room. You have 1 minute each to share this passion.
I wrote higher tax.
I love how animated a room or classroom becomes when people talk about their passions. I was telling my class this afternoon that when I meet people, I don't ask them what they do. It deadens the conversation. The conversation goes dead. It's like, how much money do you make? Subtext. Instead, I like to ask people, what floats your boat? What are you passionate about? And I do. I go to parties. That's what I want to know. And it's so fascinating to me. The most like deadpan people just get like so animated. Like somebody finally asked them about their passions. Tonight, I'd like to ask you to keep your passion in mind as I proceed with this debate. But first, And certainly, I want you to keep this passion in mind as I counter Dr. Paul's assertion that video games are totally awesome. Let us begin with a brief rebuttal. I've tried to organize a few clips and images to address, if you will, the downside of video games for your viewing amusement. First of all, let us begin with the title of this debate. Dr. Paul's title was Awesome versus Totally Awesome, but really the title should be more appropriately translated as Video Games for Dr. Paul, the Parting of the Red Sea. For Dr. Adelman, the video games is death, as we know. In the tradition of a hold 'em or fold 'em, throw down the gauntlet, no holds barred debate, we need to counter, in no uncertain terms, Dr. Paul's glorification of video games. First, as we know, in the last 5 years, the death books, as I call them, have been a hot topic, critiquing the problems, the addictions, and so forth, and commentaries of the dark side of video games. First, we need not forget that video games are big business. There is no free lunch. Even the freebies that you're offered to video games are misleading you, getting you to some climactic state and then requiring the fee to complete the act. How sinful is that? Although we all know the World of Warcraft only costs $15 a month. Remember, that's multiplied by millions and millions of users. And that's only the games. The content, the accessories, the hardware, hardly captures the accoutrements, if you will, of video games. Endless accessories, some bordering on the obscene. And here we have your private console for $40,000. But what is the real cost of being a video gamer? Well, there is an article, a recent tally, $17,000, including, if you look at the list, headsets, speakers, accessories, game furniture, console care, collectibles, and apparel, and PC games. But even some of the more modest games were still running $100 or $600. So I started reading the comments to this article by the gamers themselves, and most of them agreed that about the average cost for a startup is $1,400 for the first year. That's the price of my car. Games are big business. And then there's time. In a study by JAMA, Journal of American Medical Association, one of the few studies I will cite, because once you get into this literature, the research is very conflictual. But on a study of 600 7th and 8th graders, boys reported 13 hours of gaming per week. The girls reported 5 hours. 50% of all boys preferred high violent content versus 20% of the girls. And then the astronomical time. Well, many of you might have seen this quote just recently in the Wall Street Journal, that broadly speaking, the average gamer is 34 years old and playing electronic games for 12 years, up to 18 hours a week. And it goes on and on about how we're evolving as a species, you believe it. So I decided to kind of tone that down a bit, and I started doing some math. And so I just said, what if you're a modest gamer, what we call a medium gamer? It's light, medium, and hardcore. Okay, and I'm going to really address the broad spectrum of medium players. And let's say you're just doing it a couple hours a day. Okay, when you start adding it up, that sounds innocent, but it comes to 14 hours a week, 722 hours a year, and 1 month out of the year of total gaming. Alas, this isn't chunk time either, but a significant investment of personal time. And then the work on violence in video games. Many of you might have seen this video. It's a brief one, but kind of, I was shocked when I saw this, so I have to share this with you. You can laugh. I'm not even going to translate that one. And then we have some of the violent kill content. You can take the slides down for a minute. I'd like you to see this. They show in a study of 28 articles on gaming, though, that children younger